Hello, my name is Dr. April Clayton. Welcome to my teaching studio. I am a full-time professor of flute. We are quite a rare breed, actually. I'm the only one in my big western state, although there are many beautiful professional flute players and teachers in the state. I've had this job for 20 years, so in that time I've had a lot of very talented, dedicated students. I'll put more about my students and me as well in the video description in case people are interested in knowing that, but for now I'll just say that my oldest regular students are graduate students on the brink of professional careers, and my youngest student right now is a very dedicated little 8-year-old at a wonderful pre-college where I teach called the Gifted Music School. I teach students of all levels, and I'm going to be doing these videos. They should be good for all levels, young, serious, through professional, if any professionals want to come talk about flute with us. I will be making these videos for my students, and I plan to release them every Friday because we're stuck with remote teaching for now. So until I can see my students in person again, I plan to release these videos. But I'm sure I speak for all of us, myself and all my students, when I say that we are happy to have guests. So if you're here joining us, welcome to my new online remote teaching project, which I'm gonna call FluteTube. I know, it's really bad. So with episode 1 of FluteTube, my goal is to inspire everyone to practice hard. There have been so many canceled concerts, music events, summer music festivals, even the rest of our semester classes have been canceled. So I'm hoping that we're here to inspire you to keep practicing. And when I say we, I'm referring to myself and Spartacus. This is Spartacus, our flute class mascot, and of course that's Spartacus the abacus. My students, if you miss Spartacus, splurge, buy yourself a Spartacus relative. They're like $5, or you can at least get an app, but I personally prefer to actually move the physical beads on Spartacus. Now the basic idea is that if you have a difficult run, maybe it's 2 beats long, maybe it's 3 measures long, you isolate it, you play it perfectly, and if you play it perfectly, you get to move a bead. You play it perfectly again, you move another bead, and you want to end up playing it perfectly 100 times. Now you can also do 10 times in a row method where you play it a few times perfect, great, you've been moving beads, but then you mess up, you have to move all the beads back. So, I know, we may demonstrate Spartacus, but he's here right now to just help me remind you to develop and use practice tools. Don't get lazy and just run pieces. Be sure that you're using your practice tools. Some of those tools, in addition to Spartacus type isolating and doing something over and over again, play slowly but perfectly. Don't get lazy and just run your pieces and feel like, oh, at least I saw it. Practice in small sections and get small sections perfect. It's great to go from the end to the beginning. So start with a small section at the end and go backwards towards the beginning, because we always get the beginning really good, but we kind of neglect the end. If you are anxious to go full tempo, you can do that. Work your way towards full tempo slowly and carefully, but you can go small chunks. Again, maybe half a measure to 3 measures at or beyond full tempo, but just do that little chunk and get it perfect, and then start to line up small chunks that way. Don't just do the whole piece up to speed at once. You can do difficult runs forwards and backwards, just as you do with scales. I would memorize your hardest runs as soon as you possibly can, because the sooner your brain is guiding the way, not just your muscle memory, the better off you are. Another great way to get things in your brain is to transpose, because that makes you think through intervals, it makes you think through how the music is put together more than when you're just playing it as written. Many musicians have heard this, to do fast note runs with dotted rhythms. So instead of just playing straight 16ths, you do like ba ba da ba da ba da ba da ba da, or da da dee da 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 dee da. All of this, remember, is an investment in your playing. Once you do it, It may feel like you can't hold on to it very well, but you will. It will stay in your brain, it will stay in your muscles. It's like money in the bank. One thing that should inspire you to practice is to think about how much music benefits your brain. We always hear about studies that are being done that show that when you perform and practice music, you're using so many different parts of your brain all at the same time, and it's really good for your brain. It leads to better test scores on things like the ACT and the SAT. It builds language skills and math skills, and I know the benefits of studying music go far beyond that. Practicing and studying music builds character. It teaches you how to study and learn. And there are so many different ways that music helps you to develop mentally. But two of the most important things that I want to talk about with studying music, especially as it relates to organizing your practice right now, it can really help you to develop self-discipline and learn how to organize your time. My flute majors are required to practice 3 hours a day, 6 days a week by the woodwind department, and many of them aspire to practice 4 hours a day. So the first thing they have to figure out is how are they going to organize their days around school and everything else to fit that much practice into their day. And one thing you should consider, if you can, when is your energy best in the day? If you're a morning person, you should get up at 6 and practice. If you're a night owl, you should start when you can keep going until it's time to quit for the sake of your neighbors. You should also think about whether you want to do one big session a day or multiple sessions, 2 or 3. If you're going to do that much practice, it's nice if you can do more than one. If you do a long session, be sure that you take a break every 20 to 30 minutes. You really need it for the sake of your little muscles and tendons and for your physical well-being. That's easier said than done, because once you get on a roll, it's hard to make yourself stop and take a break. It's like the law of inertia. But you really should for your physical well-being. And another thing for the physicality of being a musician, because we are athletes of the small muscles, you must commit to aerobic exercise. Especially for flute players, we use more air than any other instrument. And you have to get used to having your heart rate go up all the time. You have to be able to breathe and be expressive and musical and play beautiful music when your heart rate is up. If I could, I would require my flute majors to commit to an aerobic routine of at least 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week. I already require too much from them, so I can't do that. But now is an excellent time for all of you to commit. Get out and run, walk, bike, whatever makes you happy. Try to do it every day. And just remember that when you are doing all this organizing and fitting things into your schedule, you are building character so that perhaps someday you can be just like me, killing this big scary bear with huge teeth and claws with your bear flute. You might be getting the idea that being a musician takes a lot of time, and it does. Just commit yourself to the time that it will take. Hopefully you will love that time anyway. I like to tell my flute students about Sir James Galway's practice routine. James Galway is one of the very most famous flute players who's ever lived. And this routine is what I've heard from sources that I trust, but Sir Galway, if you're out there and I'm wrong, just let me know, maybe leave a note in the comments. But what I've heard that he would do between his busy times of practicing and touring, when he got home and he had the time to just practice, he would do first 1 hour of scales and tone studies and those basic building blocks of technique. And then he would do another hour of technique. He would do an hour of etudes. And after those 2 hours, he would then do his 2 hours of flute repertoire. And then he would have lunch, and then he would do the whole thing again for a total of 8 hours. So that might sound like a lot, but these days many people are aware of this thing that's called the 10,000 hour rule. This was popularized in a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. If you have time to read right now, this would be a good time to read this book. And one of the ideas in this book is that it takes you 10,000 hours of practice in any field before you will become a master of that field. So let's think about how that breaks down. If you're a music major, let's say that you're practicing 20 hours a week. You may be doing more than that really with ensemble rehearsals and that kind of thing, but let's say 20 hours a week. That means it would take you 500 weeks. That means 9.6 years. Now, if you're doing the James Galway version, where you're doing 8 hours a day, let's call it 6 days a week again, that's 48 hours a week. That means to get to your 10,000 hours, it would take you 208 1/3 weeks, and that is 4 years. So if you think about 9.6 years versus 4 years, that's a huge difference. It might be the difference between getting there in your teens versus your early 20s versus your late 20s. And if you think about the career path of a musician, those are hugely different times in your life. It could make a very large life impact exactly when you get to that 10,000 hour mark. So students, if you are home and you are feeling bored, you have no excuse. Stop your whining, go and practice. Practice 8 hours a day like Sir Galway. Well, I hope you've been enjoying this little tour around my office. My students won't be back here until September, and probably I won't either. So I'm here to gather up a few things, and then I'm probably gone for the next several months. But be sure that you remember the tools that we have here, and remember that even when you see me here every week, you are always your own best teacher. I'm here as a coach for you to check in, to be sure you're on the right track, not doing anything crazy, but you're always your own best teacher, and I'm just here to help you with your learning process. One more topic that I want to remind you of today is that you should in your practice always work to optimize. So you want to go for the greatest practice efficiency that you can. I had wonderful teachers myself. I learned so much from them. And one of them I know I'll mention a lot is Michel Debost. Mr. Debost didn't care at all how long his students practiced. He only cared how efficient we were. But he made us be efficient by assigning us a lot. Every week we would have a whole new concerto or an entire sonata or a fantasy along with our normal etudes and orchestral excerpts and scale studies and tone studies. And we just needed to come prepared, whether it took us 2 hours to prepare or 8 hours to prepare every day. One lesson he asked me how much I was practicing, because he said, "You're always prepared, how much do you practice?" And I was afraid to tell him because I knew that I really should be doing more. But when I told him, he didn't even care. He was just like, "Oh, that's not so bad, and you're always prepared." You really want to commit to both time and efficiency. Practicing 4 hours but mostly watching TV doesn't cut it. Be sure that you're very efficient when you practice and have goals. If you have a goal to finish X during your practice session and you get there and you still have time left, don't quit practicing. Find something else. Find another goal that's goal Y and finish YZ before you quit. Just use up your time. We're sadly nearing the end of our episode, and I do have for the future a large list of topics. You know, we can talk about practice, musicianship, flute tips, but please leave comments with your own topic requests. And also please do like, subscribe, and share to show the world just how much demand there is for flute TV shows. What I'm unfolding here is some of the fruits of my own practice. I have these two things in my office that my students have never seen because they're sitting in a box under my desk, but this one is a banner from a bunch of concerts I did in Korea with a fabulous pianist, Ji-Hae Hong Park. One summer in South Korea, they were hanging banners of our concerts everywhere, and this remains the biggest I have ever seen my name in print. I've been told I should make a dress out of it. The other thing that I'm laying out here is the poster that was hanging outside of Carnegie Hall for my second solo recital that I gave there. So just practice hard and wait for the fruits of your own practice. And let's just take one look at these things and a final look around my office. Why are you still here? Why are you watching YouTube videos? Stop watching YouTube videos and go practice!